One of the director's closest collaborators on set is the cinematographer. Through the lens, the director of photography also maintains an intimate relationship with the actors. Today, The Hollywood Reporter sits down with the tastemakers behind some of the year's most visually striking films. In this episode, we have Dion Beebe, Into the Woods, Jeff Cronenweth, Gone Girl, Roger Deakins, Unbroken, Benoit Delhomme, The Theory of Everything, Matthew Libatique, Noah, and Dick Pope, Mr. Turner. Welcome to the Hollywood Reporter Roundtables, Cinematographers. Welcome to the Cinematographers Roundtable. I'm Carolyn Jardina, and this is my colleague, Greg Kilday. Joining us is Dion Beebe for Into the Woods, Benoit Delhomme for Theory of Everything, Matthew Libatique, Noah, Jeff Cronenweth, Gone Girl, Roger Deakins, Unbroken, and Dick Pope, Mr. Turner. When you read reviews, do you feel like the reviewers get what cinematographers do? And if not, what don't they understand? You laugh, go ahead.
No, I think for me this is incredible to realize still nowadays. What you can expect as a DP is to get one line at the end of the review, saying just 2 words about your work. So how can you explain what you do in 2 lines? So of course it's always very kind of simplistic, I would say. But of course you're happy if people like it, and many people seem to be happy with the work I've done on theory, and one guy just said something quite terrible, and I thought this is the only review now I can remember now, seeing the film looked, I don't know what, too digital or something like that, and it was so painful to read. But apart from this, I think this is what you can expect.
Yeah, it's very quickly summed up. It's not really, and I suppose it's just the balance of most reviews. That there's normally only left about a line to comment on. Occasionally they'll talk a little further, but maybe
Do you find they're just commenting on, whether it was pretty or whether it had scope? I
think people confuse pretty with good cinematography. What was it Freddie Francis says? There was good cinematography and bad cinematography, and then there's the cinematography that's right for the movie. And I often feel that actually if reviewers don't mention your work, it's probably better than if they do. It means it actually works because the film is a piece and you don't...
Have you ever read something that you felt you wanted to respond to?
I can't remember. I don't let it pass, you move on.
You want to see if you're mentioned. Yeah. You go to the end, it's like, oh, I made it. And then and basically we have to look at it and go, are the adjectives going to be correct? Because we're going to get 2 adjectives, and that's it. And are they going to be correct, and are they going to be related to the film? And if they are, then you're happy because they actually kind of got what you were trying to do and what your effort was. If the adjective is wrong, they say it's pretty, spectacular. It's a completely generic comment.
Yeah, I think mostly you're just looking to, when you read a review, you're just hoping that the review is good, more than anything. You're just there because everyone's worked incredibly hard to get it there, and then it's those moments when the whole movie is dismissed in a few lines that, thank God they didn't mention the cinematography.
I didn't.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Your wish.
You wish to have the curse reversed?
Now, a number of you have long-standing relationships with the directors that you worked with. So maybe, Jeff, you can start. Tell us a little bit about the relationship you have with David Fincher for Gone Girl.
I think that we started back in music videos and commercials, and actually I got the torch handed to me by my father, who worked with David before I did, and I worked as a camera assistant with him. And we have this friendship, but we share this aesthetic kind of view of the world and to some degree the irreverence, and so it makes it really simple to collaborate on these projects over the years.
I wonder, do you see a continuity from film to film that you've worked on with him, or is each one unique for you?
No, I feel like, I mean, they're in a similar family, but I think that the approach to each story and each movie is different and far more sophisticated than maybe it appears, the choices that we make.
Maddie, what about your relationship with Darren? I mean, how do you two plan your look?
I mean, you know, to be honest, we've known each other since film school, so it's been an evolution of a relationship. It was, you know, it's like a bad marriage at the beginning, and now we're older, so we sort of, you know, we have a history. So it's evolved in a different way. Visually, he's just trying to. He has things that he'll never give up. This sense of symmetry and this sense of subjectivity. So that's a foundation that we jump off from. So after that, we know we can create from that standpoint, because that's the only thing he doesn't deviate from. I think that if you look at his films from Pi to The Fountain to Black Swan to Noah, he's slowly deviated in different ways, but if you look at the one consistency, it's those things. But they've all dictated a different type of cinematography, or atmospherics. We didn't do The Wrestler together, so sort of the, you know, separation, but it was nice to come back on Black Swan and understand each other as older guys rather than 20-year-old angry. We could do anything.
Well, are you suggesting, did you butt heads in the earlier movies? And
We butted heads from the moment we met. We butted heads from the moment we met, but there was a friendship and a foundation, a cultural foundation that we hit it off with, and a love for films. But it was a lot of aggression at the beginning. It was very, you know, everything was very loud. Everything had to be turned to 10, 11. No, just in terms of cinematically. It's just, every idea had to be very big. And then, you know, I think we've just gotten older and then things more subtle and story, you know, trying to have a lighter hand on things than I did before.
No. What did he say?
He's going to destroy the world.
Dick, what about your relationship with Mike Leigh?
Yes, when I first met him, Mike Leigh, and talked to him, it was about a forthcoming project. This is like 24 years ago. It was an interview, really, you know, a meet. And we talked about life and nothing but. Like Jeff said, we share the same worldview. And we're totally different people, but we do have this something very much in common, and it's the most wonderful thing, really, I think, to be asked back, if you want to, if you want to be asked back. But it is a great honour to be asked back. It means more than any credit, any review, that they enjoyed the experience and want you to do another one. For me, that's really important.
When we in the press interact with Mike, he can be very cantankerous, which is actually part of his charm. On set, is he a more easygoing fellow than he appears to be?
It's like Matty said, you know, we butt heads, argue, bitch, but behind it is absolute trust in what we're doing and with each other. And yeah, we can have our moments, we really can, but nothing gets in the way of the work.
Mr. Turner seems to have taken leave of form altogether. Turner.
Clearly losing his eyesight.
A masterpiece I here present, which Mr. Turner has just sent.
I believe you to be a man of great spirit and fine feeling.
Benoit.
Yeah.
This is your first experience working with James Marsh. Tell us about that.
Yeah, because I don't really have, like you seem to all have, like one director I work with all the time. The last 3 films are with 3 different directors, you know, Jean Hillcoat, Anton Corbijn, and James Marsh. So it cannot be more different kind of film. And what I'm looking for, in fact, is to change my style on every film. So I'm work more, I don't feel I have a style. I don't want to have a style, you know, I put on a film. So when I read a script, I think, okay, I don't know how to do it, and I don't want to know now how to do it, because I'm not the DP of the previous film I shot. I'm the DP for this new film. So every time it's kind of risky in a way, because I'm trying to do something new. So I'm trying to apply a new rule on every film, a new palette of colors. So people don't really know where I am, in fact. And people don't know what I'm going to do next.
When you're working with a director for the first time, how long does it take you to kind of develop a mutual language?
Yes, of course, it needs time, you know. I guess for you, you know already as a director. And for me, it's just, I don't know what I can do. I don't know the rules. Maybe I think this guy will not like this kind of lighting. Maybe he just wants to do all Steadicam and I hate Steadicam, or, you know. So you never know. It's just very difficult. And I spend for me, the whole preparation is about to know the director and about to know what I can do the first day of the shoot. And so I'm working in this kind of very flexible way, you know, and I'm adjusting, you know. For me, the first week, I think, okay, I find the film the first week. And I find how far I can go. So every film, like with James Marsh, it was like, we found this idea, you know, something like a kind of Douglas Sirk movie style, very melodramatic, with a lot of colors. And also some kind of Kieslowski influence, more kind of modern and symbolic. And I was telling him, you know, some days, okay, let's go more Douglas Sirk on this scene, or let's go more Kieslowski on this scene. And it seems to work for the whole film, you know, so this is how I work.
What if I reverse time to see what happened at the beginning of time itself?
Wind back the clock.
Wind back the clock?
Keep going.
I don't know how.
Yet.
Keep winding!
Where to?
Now, Roger, in your case, this was your first experience working with Angelina Jolie as a director, but she's obviously an acclaimed actress as well. So what was the experience working with Angelina, considering the size and scope of this film compared with her directorial debut?
Yeah, a number of people have said the size and scope of it, but actually it's a very kind of personal film. In essence, it's, you know, it's one guy's experience. So I'm not sure that really related, but to your point, it's really interesting. When I used to know Connie Hall, bless him, and he once said to me, he said, I get so nervous before I start a film. He said, I get on the set on the first day and I look through the eyepiece because I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I'm frozen. And I said, oh God, thank God there's somebody else that's like that. If you're like that, I can be like that. And that's how I am. I'm a nervous wreck some days, thinking, how can I do it? I'd never do it. There's one little scene I'm trying to light, which is, you know, a couple of people on a table with a window over there, and I've been agonizing about how to light it for hours in the office. So that's it. It's to your point, everyone is different. Every director's different. Every situation's different. For us, and it was Australia. Though I'd never been to Australia. I'd been on holiday, but I'd never been there to shoot. The light is so intense. There's so many elements. We were shooting on water. We were shooting this B-24 supposedly flying on a bombing raid. I mean, it was like crazy. But and I say, your first day is like, can we really do this? And you settle in, you find your way. A film tends to find its own place.
Everybody brace!
We're gonna die out here.
We're not dying!
What did you and Angelina discuss going into it as far as what you wanted?
We discussed references. We each brought references. One of Angie's chief references was Sidney Lumet in a film called The Hill.
Great movie.
It was just a great movie, and it was a great reference. And it wasn't like we were going to copy it, but there was something about the framing, the immediacy of the classic kind of simplicity of the framing, and getting right to the point without a frivolous camera moves and fancy lighting. It was like, you know.
Yeah, and it had the heat and sun in that film. The sun was always in shot, burning it
wasn't a pretty looking movie.
No, it wasn't.
But it was really like Freddie Francis said, it was the right look for the movie, you know.
Great film.
So we were trying, without, you know, you start with a reference like that and you just talk things through and gradually get to know each other, and there you go.
It's the same with me, with Mike. I mean, I work with Mike, and then I go off with another director. I mean, God, it's completely and utterly different. You can imagine. Mike's working practice is absolutely in stone. He only has one way. And then I'll go and, after Turner, I went into the film about London gangsters, the Cray brothers. And it was such a totally different experience. I was exactly what Roger said, at the viewfinder, holding on to it, you know.
Hiding behind it.
Yeah, hiding behind it. I mean, it's like every single film, and project is completely different.
But it's
It's
that funny,
directors.
and it's that funny thing because the cinematographer, in a way, is not really allowed to be that person. You know, because everyone's like, okay, this is the sort of stable influence right here.
Yes.
So you're sort of constantly having to sort of be the sort of rock.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, inside you're
half
just
the
like
time the director will
crumbling.
walk off and you're actually running the set until the director comes back and you're ready to shoot. And it's like, go,
Where's he been?
Yes, but for me, I mean, I really think the director is more scared than what we are. You
Probably
know?
it's true.
I think the actors are more scared than us. The director is very scared, I think.
We all hold it
I
in.
really think it's incredible how scared they can be, and they never say that, you know.
One of the first films I shot was 1984, and Richard Burton was on it. And after a couple of days shooting, he asked the AD to call us all together at the end of the day. And we were waiting outside of his trailer, and he just said, I just wanted to thank you. When I came on the set yesterday morning, I was terrified, but you made me so welcoming. I've had the best experience I've ever had on a film. And we were so nervous, and then he was nervous. It was just a wonderful, you know, it's what taught me
I think it's
a lot.
important to know how fragile people are on film set. Even like a big DP, or you call that in LA, or it's good to know, I think. And big actors, they are so scared not to perform at the level where we think they are going to be. And I did work with Al Pacino in all the first days. Is like everybody, you know, and everybody thinks Al Pacino is going to deliver every day perfectly. You know, he's scared too. He likes you if he feels you're fragile too. And he comes, he touch your arm just before the take, just he knows you're connected to this kind of scared, you know, and it's good.
It's a common struggle that you have to go through when you're creating a film.
Well, Roger, how did you find with Angelina, since she brings to it her persona as an actress and has to set that aside, how does she go about establishing her authority as a director with the crew that you're working with?
She's very low key, but I mean, most of the time, you know, the crew, she's the director. You know, the director's the director. They don't need to establish their authority. I mean, so that doesn't. I think the biggest thing she brings to it is passion, you know, and I think that's the biggest attribute any director can have is passion for the project, really, you know, because it's infectious.
Jeff, now in your case, your lead actor is an award-winning director.
Exactly.
So did he bring his sensibility as a director to the set when you were working with him?
No, I think.
This, of course, is Ben Affleck, who won the Oscar for Argo.
I know, but that's the beautiful irony in it, is that, you know, he had won the previous year. But when this opportunity came up, he dropped everything and jumped on board and was a very, very avid student of David. Not to take anything away from Ben, because he's such a talented filmmaker, but he took full advantage of this opportunity and studied and watched and kind of went through the procedures with David. And so it was fun. I mean, we also had Tyler Perry, who in his own right, you know, has directed movies, not as serious as something like this, but, you know, both of them were students of David's techniques and strategies and approaches all the way through editorial. So it was fun.
Nick Dunn, you're probably the most hated man in America right now. Did you kill your wife, Nick?
Everyone told us and told us marriage is hard work. Not for me and Nick.
As you all know, my wife, Amy Elliott Dunn, disappeared 3 days ago. I had nothing to do with the disappearance of my wife.
How often do actors exhibit interest in what you're doing?
Yeah, well, when we did 9, Daniel Day-Lewis actually came on the location scouts with us. But that was more to the point of understanding playing a director. But he never left the set. You know, he was on set even the days he wasn't working. You know. But that's his methodology. And I think other actors, it really depends. There's some who want to get involved technically or want to understand more technically, and others who really, the less, they really don't want it to interfere with what they're doing. So it's a total almost disregard for it, which is also completely legitimate, I think. You know, you're not there to wonder about the technicalities most of the time if you're an actor. But if that helps you, then if then great. You know, I think it really comes down to the type of actor and sort of performance.
Because, I mean, when we read about some of the classic actors and actresses like Garbo and Dietrich, they were apparently very conscious of what the lighting was doing and what the
Well, I think you
camera was
also, you
doing.
had to be very technical then. You know, there you were, you know, focused, there were a lot of technical sort of, I think more so than now. Actors have been freed up a lot in terms of modern cinematography.
The lighting is made very different now. I think in the past you had like a very specific light on one person, so if you were moving like this, you were in the shadow completely.
You were
so
underexposed.
you really had to know where you were. Now we try to light in a kind of more general way, I think. You know, we like the space more than the actors in a way. I feel I like more the space, so I think the actors can go to a window or to go to a seat at the other end of the room, and they are still, you know, exposed in very interesting light, like in life. And when in the past we were lighting more like for cinema, I think. I'm trying to sometimes to put more cinema, you know, in my lighting, some more effect, but I have to push myself hard to do that. Because I think the taste now is to do something. There is no DP, there is no lamps. You know what? But you know what? You know what I mean. You know what I mean. There is no DP. I mean,
well, there's no artifice because we take a space and we light it naturalistically.
Yeah.
For the very reasons you're talking about. But I find it interesting because we're in a shoot the rehearsal stage of cinema. And we don't rehearse. We don't get very specific. We get stand-ins. If we get stand-ins, maybe you need 5, you'll get 2. So you start to make general marks, and you start to light the set, or you start to, you know. But you get a veteran actor in there, they understand where they have to be for where the camera is. And because they understand focal length, they understand positioning. And they see it on a dolly, and they know that we can adjust. It's, you know, I just worked with Paul Giamatti on Straight Outta Compton, and he was, you know, he was the senior actor of the bunch. And he was just, because he was such an anchor, just from a blocking standpoint, it's completely technical. It's not your skill as an actor, as a performer, the humanity you bring out. It's literally what we do. They meet. What they do technically meets with what we do creatively. It's kind of fun to watch, but it's also funny because you see a guy like, I remember doing an over on Jim Carrey, and every take it started coming. It was on somebody else. It was over Jim's shoulder. Every take it just started to come around this way. And I was like, this is a 50-50, what the hell? I go, Jim. And they just know, you know, and it's great.
Well, you're shooting Noah. You had the unusual experience of coming up against Hurricane Sandy. Had you ever experienced anything like that before?
Force majeure? No. No, I haven't. But, you know, it provided a few days off. It was just, when you're making a film like Noah, or any film, you get emotionally invested in it. So it was kind of this happening that, you know, that made everybody feel like we were on the right film for some weird reason. And then it gave us a week off to sort of refocus to the end of the film and tear down our arc set, which was interesting. But, you know, it was funny because it's a tough time to be in the city when something like that happens.
I mean, I would wonder, I mean, hurricanes quite aside, in general, when you're shooting outdoors on location, do you view the weather as your friend or your enemy?
Best cinematographer's best thing now is a phone app, a weather app. I got 4, I think. So I pick the weather I want on my phone app. Say to the director, "That's what's going to happen in a minute." You know. Yeah, no, I just did a film that was in New Mexico with a lot of exteriors, and it was like monsoon season. So I was on the phone constantly figuring out what the weather was going to do.
But it's a bit of a roll of the dice, though, weather, because you start a day and you've got to sort of choose an approach.
Exactly. Right.
And it's like, okay, it's going to be cloudy or it's going to be sunny, and right now I can't play both. So I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going with cloudy.
Yeah, you roll the dice.
And you sort of
and you go.
And you go, and you sort of then you have to maintain that for. Often it won't just be for that day; it'll be for the subsequent 2 weeks afterwards. You know, that because that you're setting up the sequence, and now you're tied to a look, and so it's the weather.
Yeah, it's interesting because you know people think about lighting as being a hard thing, you know, but the hardest thing to do is to shoot a day exterior over an extended period. Especially in England.
It doesn't even have to be over an extended period.
No, over a day.
Half a day would do.
Or here. It's terrible here.
Dick, on Mr. Turner, since you're creating some of those great cloudscapes that the painter himself painted, did you wait for those to arrive, or did you ultimately turn to visual effects for some of them?
No, we didn't turn to visual effects. We were just blessed with the most extraordinary weather for the period we shot in. We did have this incredible luck. I think it was April, May we started through August. It was fantastic weather. I mean, not just bland and sunny, but interesting and dramatic as well. It was never, ever really dull and grey. And yeah, we lucked out, really. I mean, on the interiors as well, because with Mike's films, we're never on a studio. It's all location filming. And when we were looking out a window, for example, we were always blessed with these exteriors that looked just right outside windows, etc. It was just one of those things. It could have been terrible, but it wasn't. It was great.
I think the weather it depends particularly on the story you're trying to tell. In Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, it needed to be cold, and it was cold, you know, and it was cold when we started the movie, and it was cold when we ended the movie, and it was just cold, and it was so imperative that element actually, to some degree, was a character of the movie. In the setting, it was imperative that you felt what these characters were going through physically in order to appreciate their journeys, and so. Yeah. That.
Oh yes, you don't always want sun. I mean, that was just on that film. You know, it's terrible to have it when you don't want it. I mean, and then it is your worst enemy.
Yeah, it's funny because
you want it to go away.
On theory, the producer said to me, the only thing they said to me, they said, we don't want the film to look like an English film. It's the first thing they said to me. We want the film to be like sunny. We want to have the feeling, you know, the film to be positive and cheerful. And I thought it was a very, very good point, you know. I thought a very good point. I know you've got sun on Turner. It's great. But I thought, okay, this story could be quite sad and it's kind of melodrama in a way. So I thought, okay, I really want Stephen Hawking to be like always in very strong sun. It was my idea. I said, okay, this guy is thinking the universe, he's thinking the planets, the stars. I have to put him in strong light. And so, of course, my light is more like the kind of light you would get in LA or in California, in a way. So I didn't respect the English weather forecast at all. Not at all.
Christopher Nolan has been pushing to use film projection for Interstellar. I'm curious what all of your thoughts are on this. Is this film's last hurrah?
Well, I think film projection is at its very last sort of round, I would say. You know, just because, you know, it's funny. Certainly when I go in and you'll run, you know, we're all probably still doing film prints of the movies we make, and they're all still screening with film projection. But when you suddenly flip over to the film projection and it's a less sophisticated, look, it's different, it has a different feel, you really feel the shutter effect. It's a different viewing experience. In terms of just you know, the quality of the image on the screen with these these new digital projectors, I mean, there's a really great quality you can get out of them. But I think the reality is that almost every theater, every day, is replacing film projectors with digital projectors, and that's just a reality. You know?
I mean, I miss, like all of us, the texture and the quality of a projected film image, and even to some degree that shutter, which was comforting. But when you spend so much time perfecting an image, and you walk in a multi-complex, and you walk from one screen room to the next screen room, and it's completely different, I almost let go of a little bit in order to get some of that control back. And then you throw in piracy and you throw in environment and not shipping 3,000 prints around the world and what you do with those 3,000 prints. And then the cost. So I think that it's inevitable that it's going to
Yeah, there's no rolling that back, I don't think.
No.
Well, the latest round of digital cinema projectors are largely 4K, and you shot Gone Girl in 6K. So how important, maybe we'll start with Jeff, how important is resolution to you?
Well, I think it's a point of no return. It doesn't matter anymore. I mean, the images are so refined and sometimes too pristine, and you go out of your way to kind of bring back something tangible that an audience can relate to or touch visually on the screen. But the advantages of that is having more choices later, or going deeper, or in our case, you know, Fincher loves to stabilize practically every shot in a movie, and so using a 6K format but framing for 4K gives you an enormous amount of room to either stabilize, if you should decide to reposition, if you do want to push in or something, and down-resing is always better than blowing something up, and you get a little more, you know, quality out of something. So, you know, I'm sure it's just around the corner, 8K and 10K and 12K. But at the moment, there's no way of even presenting that to an audience. You know, you can't project 6K, so it just becomes a layer of another tool in helping you tell those stories.
Roger, you're shaking your head.
No, I'm one part of me is very old-fashioned and purist. I wish we were still shooting black and white 133, but there we go. I think, you know, I think digital cameras, digital projection, they're all tools. You know, it depends on the project. You choose a different camera like you used to choose a different film stock, and it's going to be digital projection. That's going to be the norm. It's just that's the way the world's going. So you make it the best you can, you know. And it's certainly got a lot of advantages that film never had. Consistency being a really big one.
Yeah, I agree with that. The digital projection for me, the advent of it and when it became really good was a great turning point, because you sit in that cinema and before those curtains open and you feel safe and secure that the DCP is going to always be consistent. You never knew with film prints what was really going to come up, whether it was going to scratch before it actually came through. It is always a lottery, and sometimes covered in dirt. I mean, I saw Inherent Vice at the New York Film Festival and projected on film at the Lincoln Center, and I didn't know whether they wanted it to be really dirty and almost like gone through generations, but it was just covered in dirt, and I just was taken away from the film. So digital projection, I loved when that came out, and I absolutely don't really regret. I don't mind seeing it on old films and other people's work, but not on my own.
Now, another thing we're starting to hear about is adding high dynamic range. In other words, you're going to have blacker blacks, whiter whites. Dion, I'm going to start with you on this one, because we know Chicago was actually remastered recently in a high dynamic range format. What are your thoughts on that? How important is that to you?
Yeah, look, I think in terms of, you know, remastering things in a high dynamic range in consultation with the cinematographer, I think is important with that, because, you know, if you start to affect contrast, you know, which is there for a reason and there by design, and you start to sort of measure out every highlight and every shadow, you're going to sort of change the sort of aesthetic of the picture. So that, I think, is one area of the HDR sort of conversation. And then there's shooting HDR, which, you know, this idea that really you're shooting out of a window in the middle of the day, and every detail out the window in direct sunlight is exposed with the shadow in the corner under the bed in the interior of the room. You know, so suddenly you've got it's not a perspective that we are used to seeing. It doesn't relate to our sort of vision and perception of the world. So you know, when you were talking about just taking an image and applying light to it, and not just falling into a world where everything is just illuminated, but actually applying light to tell the story. You know, we can shoot anything in any situation. I could walk into any restaurant in the middle of the night in LA and I could photograph in it without bringing a light with me. But is that cinematography? You know, is that, you know, surely part of what we do is about shaping light and telling a story with light. And I do worry with, you know, do you just stop applying light to that? Do you?
I really think it's very dangerous. I think this idea of high latitude of exposure, this is the worst you can get for a picture, I think. I would love to shoot with a picture nobody could touch, you know, in a way. You know, say, okay, this is, you expose it like this. This is how you want the picture to be seen. This is terrible to imagine someone is going to come in 50 years and lift all the shadows and see, as you say, under the bed. What do you have to see under the bed?
Yeah.
You know, it's no point.
A lot of cables.
I think lighting is about also the mise en scène and what the director wants to show. I think, and I think it's important to, as you said, to direct the light where you want to people to look.
It was also about personality, isn't it? I mean, each one of you, Matty, everybody, I can watch your work and know it's you. It's about the eye behind the camera. It's not about the bloody technology. It's about the person behind it and
interpreting the technology.
I mean, I don't think we want to talk so much about technology, DP. We want technology is something we put, we don't talk about photographers saying, oh, they are good technicians. They are photographers, and same for painters, for any artist. In cinema, we talk too much about which camera, which lab.
How many Ks.
This is going, I think, crazy to me, because you just want to see the film. I mean.
Well, to your point, it's about the environment that you place these actors in and the emotional connection to whatever's happening or the story. And I think wonderfully, the digital cameras allow all this reality photography happens, and it has its place, and then you've been saturated on television with all this reality photography to the point where I think everyone appreciates something that is really conceived and calculated and allows you to really relate to that. And so I think it's actually helping itself in some way,
right? It's just
making it all making the craft of cinematography even more relevant, because you are so exposed to so many flat, unenthusiastic, boring images. And if you try to tell an intimate story in a setting that has no personality, you've made the actor's job and the director's job incredibly more complicated to relate to the audience.
Yeah, so really, where you place the camera is just as important as the light, really.
Exactly.
That's the difference, telling the story through images. And where you put that camera for the most emotional impact on any given scene is probably more important in a way than the light.
Of course, 100%.
It's tantamount to what we do, and it's that authorship of light is really, to me, authorship of the photographic composition and placement of camera.
Yeah, choice of lens.
A choice of all that.
No movement.
It's like you're talking about, whether cinematographers are needed anymore. That's the job. That is what it is, to be in there and say, well, we need to be here. We need to do this to that. It's like, that's what I love most about cinematography. It's just watching the scene and working out how to shoot it.
When you watch someone else's movies, how conscious are you of watching that cinematography contribution as opposed to plot, acting?
Oh, often the first time I see a film, I'm not looking at all at that. I'm just looking for it as an experience, a film experience. We all love the movies. I mean, that's what it's about. And so I'll see it again, obviously, and again if I find it interesting. But the first time, I like to cast all that aside and just watch and be sucked in.
I'm just mostly envious of what they managed to achieve.
Yeah, right. Me too. I think everybody is better than me. When I see a film, I think, my God, they are so talented. It's so well finished, and I see all your film. I think it's so well finished. I think, my God, I would never have the patience to treat every shot like this. It's incredible. Personally, I see the work. If I'm not moved by the film, I see the work. Like everybody, when you start to be moved, you see everything. You start to see in the corners. You start to see, about shadow. This is the worst, I think.
I think that whole thing we were talking about earlier about reviewing also, if they pick up on the cinematography and forget about reviewing the film, it's as bad, really, because that's the only thing they can grab hold of is the cinematography, where for them, obviously, the film was a disaster, but beautifully, despite everything, beautifully shot, but, it's about as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
I think we're all like kids when we sit down at a movie, and if the story is engaging enough, you get sucked in and immersed and don't pay attention. I mean, obviously you appreciate good quality work, and of course the fears that come out of watching someone else succeed, and questioning yourself. But if there are mistakes that pop up or it gets boring, then it's like a science project, and you see everything they did, and then it becomes a distraction to the point where you can't even enjoy the film.
Well, I'm afraid we have to wrap up, but thank you everyone for joining us. Dion, Beebe, Benoit, Delhomme, Matthew Libatique, Jeff Cronenweth, Roger Deakins, and Dick Pope.
Thank you, gentlemen.